Yeah, we're ready. Okay, welcome. It's 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, April 1st, 2026. The Tooele City Council and the Redevelopment Agency of Tooele City are meeting in a work meeting. This meeting is being held at Tooele City Hall in the council chambers located at 90 North Main Street in Tooele, Utah. We're also streaming this electronically on the Tooele City YouTube channel. We will start with the roll call. Councilman Gossett.
Present.
Councilwoman Goches.
Present.
Councilman Hanson.
Present.
Councilman McCall.
Present.
I'm Councilman Brady, and I'm present. We'll move on to item 3, the mayor's report.
Thank you, Council. I have a couple of things tonight. First of all, some of you were there, and many of you probably saw in the news that the state has gone after a Nuclear Life Innovation Center bid that's been put out by the federal government. It is located out in the middle of nowhere. Everybody says, by what city? And I'm like, there's not a city that it's by. So off of exit 62. And there is nothing there. It's some Sitla land, but there are a lot of questions about it. It's not a done deal. It's just a bid. Utah and Tooele in particular, Tooele County in particular, does have meet all the criteria of the bid, and I believe we are the only state who has met all of the criteria. A lot of the other states are pairing together with different states. But what it is an innovation center. It's kind of like if you compare like the Pentagon oversees all of the bases, it's kind of an innovation center that would oversee other nuclear reactor sites. So it's a campus that has a lot of things involved in it. But there are still a lot of questions. It's just a bid, so we'll see what happens. And President Trump, it's a priority for him, and so he's wanting to get going and by 2029. So there's still some time to work out a lot of the details, and I'm sure that the state will be putting forth a lot of information for the residents so they know what's going on as it progresses. We've also had a number of calls today about some work being done up on Skyline, and everybody's assuming the light is going in. No, not to diss UDOT, but I've never seen UDOT work that fast in my life. So it's actually digging for the gas company. They're moving a gas line or doing something with their gas line. So we don't have any updates on the Skyline light yet. That's still in the works. So if anybody asks, then that's information for that. And then I wanted to report that I have met in budget meetings with all of the directors now. So we have the budget discussions ongoing, and we're waiting to see what our revenue is like before we start making those allocations. But we have been through personnel, of course, which was your first priority, and we've been through all the directors' needs and a few wants, and we're looking at those. We do have a lot of needs in the community. The reclamation facility, as you know, is at capacity and needs some work. Our fire and police needs some help. So there are a lot of needs, and we'll be bringing to you those in the near future, and hopefully some of the new businesses help out with the revenues coming in. And then I wanted to just also share we always hear complaints at city council meetings, so I just wanted to share 2 positive letters that I have received in the last little while. One was from Karen Jench, who's come to city council meetings a couple of times to complain about the dogs in shopping carts, animals in shopping carts, and she just wanted to express appreciation for putting it in the newsletter what the code is and that people shouldn't do that, and just thank us for responding to her concerns. And another one was in regards to our Public Works Department, that there was some work done in March on Coleman, and the city crew came and fixed some grass around the water meter, and after they left, I guess the water meter had to be dug out, and after they left, you couldn't even tell they'd been there. So they were very appreciative of the care that our Public Works Department took in making sure that their yard looked as good when they left as it did when they came. So, of course, we know we have great employees, and we appreciate that, but it's always good to hear some good news from our public. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next item, the council members' report. We'll start with Councilman Gossett.
All righty. I was not able to make it. I was in Nephi when I needed to be in Tooele to head out to the nuclear thing, so I didn't make it to that. I have gone out and supported the new businesses that have opened and tried to make sure that I've gone in and seen it and supported them. One thing that I did have a meeting with somebody with the Ladies Community Club, and they would like to know from the city standpoint what they can be doing to improve our community. What things could we use help from the Ladies Community Club? And so I told her I'd bring it up tonight, and then if anybody has any ideas, I can take it back to her and let her know. But I thought that was really nice. They've done a lot of good over the years. I've known about them since 2014, and so I feel like they've brought a lot of good things to the community. So keep that in mind. And that's all I got.
Thank you. Councilwoman Goches.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been out of town for the last 2 weeks, but I just wanted to share just a fun fact. I did visit the NASA Kennedy Space Center, and today the Artemis II launched the rocket, and I got to see that on television. It was really fun. My daughter watched it live. Just a fun fact about Utah is that the twin solid rocket boosters are manufactured by Northrop Grumman in Utah. The rocket motors are produced at the Promontory facility, and that testing is done here in Utah. So we had a big presence in that, and it's really historic. They haven't launched a rocket to the moon since 1972, so it was very patriotic. It was not part of my official duties, just a fun fact I wanted to share with the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Hanson.
So I did attend the governor's party out there at Exit 62 and got to listen to that talk, and it's exciting stuff if it all works out and it's safe and everything, and it appears that it is, but like the mayor said, we still have a long way to go before it would be us, so we'll see what happens. And then we did have planning commission last week, and all the things that were discussed are on our council meeting tonight, so I'm not going to report on them. I'll just know that everything that we talked about, they talked about, because they had to approve everything. And I think everything that was talked about, they did approve and pass it on to us. So that's what I got.
Thank you. Councilman McCall.
I attended also the governor's thing out in the desert. It is out there. And the proposed footprint is big. It's miles. But like she said, I guess we just have to wait and see how that pans out. And I attended 2 ribbon cuttings over the past couple of, since the last meeting we've had. Was it 2, Mayor, or was it 3? Yeah, to the point that I mentioned to the mayor, we're having so many ribbon cuttings. I'm about to ask for a stipend for gas with $4 a gallon, driving all over there. Just kidding, that's all I have, man.
All right, thank you. There has been a lot of ribbon cuttings. I haven't been able to make it to a lot of the ribbon cuttings, but I do try to go support the businesses after and taste what they have. I've also attended the weekly staff meeting, the mayor's staff meeting, and just want to recognize the staff for the great work they do. It's always interesting to hear the different challenges that they're going through, and they have great discussions and come up with great ideas to address a lot of the residents' concerns. And then met with a developer. It's actually one of our discussion items tonight about the Compass Point CSD, so I don't have anything to report on that. That concludes my report. We'll move on to our discussion items. Our first discussion is a discussion on Compass Point CSD 3100 North, presented by Andrew Agard, the Community Development Director, and Anna Englund, the City Planner.
Thank you, Council. This is an application for a commercial special district which would apply to the 116 acres of property highlighted in red on the aerial photograph shown on your screen there. You'll see that the Sage Flats Apartments is located northwest. They are currently under construction, and then we have the Compass Point RSD located to the west of the CSD, which is currently being reviewed in various phases and villages for approval. So the CSD only applies to the commercial properties. It does not apply to the residential. So this is the zoning of the property currently. Most of the property is currently zoned general commercial. There's a small sliver of Compass Point RSD on the northwest side. That may just be a mapping error. We can correct that when we update the zoning map. So we are bringing this item to the City Council because we've already been through a couple of iterations of review of the CSD with the applicant, and I kind of feel like we're spinning our wheels. The applicant wants certain things with the CSD, and staff wants certain things with the CSD, and you guys are the ones that are going to make the decisions. So I thought, well, let's bring it to the city council and get your feedback and your opinions and what you'd like to see with this CSD. The applicant is here as well tonight. I'm sure he would like to discuss this with the council. And I'm also going to be tag teaming with my new city planner, Anna, so she'll be up here to present some of her perspectives here. First of all, I just want to touch on what a CSD is. A commercial special district is a new zoning ordinance. It's a zoning ordinance that's written and proposed by the applicant. And basically, it's a tool in the city's toolbox which enables the applicant to write their own commercial zoning code. It allows them to set their own development standards, set their own architectural standards, and enable maximum design flexibility for the developer and design professionals. By trade, I'm a planner. I'm not a design professional. So we put this tool in the toolbox to enable people who are good at design, that's what they do every day, to have some flexibility to design a project in Tooele City that maybe our rigid zoning codes wouldn't permit to happen. So that's the purpose of the CSD. What a CSD is not, is it is not a PUD. So we have a PUD ordinance that is a completely different type of development. A CSD is not a PUD and does not function like a PUD. The CSD also does not exceed or supersede building codes or fire codes, as those are mandated by state law. So they would still have to comply with all of the pertinent building codes, pertinent fire codes, and so forth, but it does allow them some flexibility. I do want to emphasize to the council that a CSD is a legislative item, and as such, the council is not obligated to approve the CSD unless the council is comfortable with the CSD proposal and sees it as a benefit for Tooele City as a whole. So this is a legislative item, so you are in a position where you can, I guess, negotiate with the applicant, get this to where you want it to be and to see what you want to see in this area, and you're under no obligation to approve that. And the ordinance actually spells that out as well. So the applicant has provided some documentation. I just want to briefly go through the proposals and then turn the time over to Anna and let her touch on some things. The purpose and intent of the Compass Point CSD is to establish a clear master plan framework for commercial development within the Compass Point area. They want to enable a cohesive commercial environment that supports daily services, employment, and destination-oriented retail entertainment uses, ensure compatibility with adjacent residential neighborhoods through lighting controls and internal connectivity, and provide predictable development standards for future users. The CSD will be the ultimate governing document for this area if the council decides to adopt this. Anything in the CSD that doesn't cover or does not have specific development standards for commercial development would then revert back to our standard city ordinances. And we do have some ordinances that are not zoning specific, such as parking and so, landscaping and parking areas and so forth. Those are broad ordinances over all commercial zonings. Those would still have applicability in this area, where the CSD is silent. Some of the things they provided in the CSD, they have a list of proposed permitted and conditional uses. These were generally brought from our existing list, and the applicant has kind of altered which ones are permitted and which ones are conditional. They're proposing bulk development standards, such as building setbacks, lot standards, and so forth. Here are the lot standards that they are proposing. Pretty standard stuff in regards to what the general commercial zone currently requires. They do have an 8-story setback, area A only. To go back to the map here. Area A is the area on the west side closest to the Compass Point RSD. That would be designated as Area A in regards to taller buildings. So going back to the setbacks, for an 8-story building, they are requiring within the CSD that the building has a setback related to the height of the building. So if it's an 80-foot tall building, it would be I believe, an 80-foot setback of residential uses. So they have the height proportionate to the setback is proportionate to the building height. Here's some language in regards to setbacks. Currently, they are requesting a front yard setback of 10 feet, In our general commercial zone, the setback for front yards is 30 feet, so that would be a reduction in setback. Side yard setback on corners of 10 feet. Currently in the general commercial, that would be 0 feet, as long as it meets building codes. And then building height, 1 story, with a maximum in Area A of the CSD, which we just discussed, could go up to 8 stories and must comply with Section 4.1 of the CSD, which is the increased setback for taller buildings. Parking, they are proposing a universal parking standard of 4 stalls per 1,000 square feet. Now, in our current ordinance, we have varying parking stalls for different types of uses. So for retail, it's 3 stalls per 1,000. For medical office, it's 5 stalls per 1,000. It varies depending on the use. They are settling on just a basic parking standard for the entire CSD, which is 4 per 1,000. And then there's an exception for an educational facility or hospital, which would be determined by the development director, which would be me. We would require a parking study and make sure that they have sufficient parking in that case. They are proposing overall project landscaping for park strips and park strip trees. This is out of our current code, exactly as we are currently required for landscaping in those areas. And the applicant can explain better why they're doing that. And then landscaping for individual lots, 10% minimum landscaping. Percentage requirement may be reduced where project public amenities are provided and the use of sod is prohibited. And then fencing and screening standards, there'd be no fencing standards except where vehicle storage areas for automobile repair businesses are proposed. So there's a requirement for masonry fencing for screening purposes there. Pylon signs, they have some additional language that would allow some additional pylons along Meridian Way, 3100 North, and SR 36. And then they're also proposing a master plan monument sign, a very large sign to designate that as Compass Point. I don't know where that's going to be in the project. I was anticipated to be somewhere near the entrance into the project. We wanted to make sure we had that codified in the CSD. And then, of course, an expansive list of permitted and conditional uses are included within the CSD. So that's the proposal as currently proposed. Again, we have been through 2 reviews with the applicant, and they have tweaked some things, and they have held firm on other things. And I just think at this point in time we need some impact or some feedback from the decision makers. And I'd like to turn the time over to Anna and let her touch on some things that she feels are pertinent. And then, of course, the applicant's here to talk to the council as well.
So there are a couple things about the CSD proposed zoning that I wanted to go over. The first thing is that it is located at the most northern part of the city, and that would impact like just the overall view of people coming into the city off of Main Street. And I feel like that's something that we should hold into consideration when reviewing this application. Another thing that I've found through reading the purpose statement is that the CSD is meant to be used as a placemaking tool. The CSD district is meant to provide a master planned and architecturally designed non-residential development. The plan should include design standards for all aspects of the project, including methods for integrating separate uses and other developments, CC&Rs for the project, and then also, conceptual plans that show the total acreage of each proposed use, such as retail, office, entertainment, public space, and then also illustrations that show the block design and building elevations as well. Another thing too that this type of development should include would be sign and lighting package showing, how the designs, how it's all going to be cohesive. to make this a significant or separate place from other places in the city. So that would also include illustrations of proposed lighting and signage. There's also some bonus things that we could consider would be doing things to integrate like landmarks and references to the history of a place. On these, this sign and lighting package, we're looking at Thanksgiving Point, we're looking at the water tower. That's like a extra, like a placemaking type of landmark. And then also, if you look at the new Park Boulevard, which is by Park City, that has like mine shaft type of tower lights, which is, I thought was kind of a cool little unique thing. And then like other places like in Lehigh, there's Cabela's where you have big box retail, but then there's also things that are specific to that particular development that would be good to integrate. And then you just have like a sign package and lighting package included in that. So as far as the review standards go, the CSD results in a development that couldn't be created with just the underlying zone. That is one standard that we would need to also consider. It will substantially benefit the city, and then the development will be unique to the community. From what I've seen and what I've reviewed, there's a few things that would be different, but it would mostly be what you could achieve with just the general commercial zone. So that would be very similar and questionable if that would meet that first review standard. So another thing that we can also look at is that it is in the gateway overlay. There's also going to be some additional considerations for building design orientation, signage, landscaping, location of off-street parking areas, and then street improvements such as trees, pathways, and other amenities. And then this is just this street view of 3100 North and then the overall subject property. So, I mean, there's some really neat things that we could consider going into that place to have like a better than average development, we'll put it that way. Some examples of good entryways, we're looking at Daybreak and then Thanksgiving Point and, Brigham City having the archway over the street, that type of thing. With this type of zone, we could integrate like neat little things that you couldn't do other places in the city like that, which would be another thing we could potentially consider. And then other design elements to consider. I know that we are going through a drought, but we could also make it look nicer. There's other things that we could do, such as Daybreak, where they've left it natural. They've just taken out invasive species and the grass and everything like that. It's just pretty natural. This is also helpful and beneficial because if we take out too much of the vegetation, we're going to only increase urban heat island issues and things like that. And we want to try and not, continue those type of things. Another thing we can do is create ways to, have a buffer off of Main Street to try and
like protect the development from noise and smells and, just kind of scary things from fast-moving cars right next to you. So that's another thing to do, and that's what these are buffers off of high-traffic roadways. But things that you can do to create interest would be like, having different types of finishing materials or ground materials to make some kind of design. If we're going to go less vegetation, then, try and make it more interesting. So that's all I have.
Okay. I think we should have some questions first, and then if you have any questions for Andrew or Anna, let's ask those now, and then we can have the developer explain if they need to. So I have a question about an 80-foot building, and it's in one area. Is that one building? Is it large enough for multiple buildings? Because that would be significantly higher than any building we have currently in Tooele City.
Yeah, we have a silo out at the depot that's 100 feet tall.
Okay.
That gives you a pretty good
Yeah.
indication of how tall they would be. And the CSD does not limit the number of buildings. It just limits them to a certain area.
Okay. And the area was farther west than.
That was farther west.
It's not on the SR 36 like the frontage.
Oh, I should have had a better map to prepare that. You see where it says subject properties?
Yeah.
It'd be around kind of south of where the P is, in that corner.
Okay.
I was curious, I know that they talked about a hospital being 80 foot high. Was there other kind of businesses they was thinking that would be tall like that, hotels or other things? Or I guess that's a question for the developer.
Question for the applicant. Yeah, but the building height is not limited to a specific type of use. So a hotel could come in that area and be 8 stories tall.
Do they already have somebody in mind for that? Is that why we're talking 80 feet?
I don't know. Good question for the applicant.
All right.
And just along that same topic, do we have an allowance in our code for 80-story building, even though that silo is 100? I know that we raised the height when the LDS Church built the temple. It exceeded our standards.
Yeah, and when we did the ordinance amendment for the temple spire, it was specific to residential zoning districts. In commercial zones, the tallest we have currently would be in the Tooele City Business Park. We allow buildings adjacent to the railroad to go up to 70 feet. In regular commercial zones, I believe it's 4 stories is the maximum height.
Okay, and this is, am I understanding 8 stories? So that's twice our height. And has the fire department been notified of this? And do we have the capability for fire suppression for a building of that?
I have forwarded these drafts on to the fire marshal, Nick Wall, and he has reviewed them and did not issue any comments. So I assume that they have the capabilities to handle those situations.
Okay, great. I also kind of wondered, and I understand how the CSD works, that it's to promote a tailored development, and I like that. But do they still have to notify the city of their intent and what they're going to do, or is this just giving them carte blanche to be able to go do the things that they would like?
So they would have to go through the standard approval process for site plans that any other commercial business in the city does. In fact, the CSD does spell out the review process for those things. And conditional use permits would have to go to Planning Commission as usual. So the approval processes would be pretty much the same as current commercial zoning districts. There wouldn't be any changes there.
Okay.
Item 8 is the architectural and vertical design standards, and it really says there is no required architectural design standards. Part of me that worries me a little bit, because that means it can look however they want it to look, right? There's zero standard of finishes, and do we lose some control over that by it's all in the applicant's hand at that point of what it looks like? And is that common with a CSD like this to?
I wouldn't say it's common. The applicant is pioneering this. We haven't done one of these in Tooele City before. We would like to see, as staff, as Anna mentioned, this is a great opportunity to really make something that pops for Tooele City, for those that are coming into the city. And so at least the buildings that are adjacent to SR 36, it would be nice to have some architectural standards or some buffering mechanisms codified in the CSD. Those properties that are a little farther back, they would be similar to other commercial properties in that we don't currently have architectural standards in the books for commercial properties. Now, in speaking with the applicant, they intend to make this a pleasing development, and they do good work. And they will have CCNRs and so forth that will help govern the appearance of their structures. However, we don't control CCNRs. And they could change those without city approval and so forth. So the question is the council comfortable with that, or would you like to see architectural standards in the CSD?
If we added something, what would be an example of a design that, a standard you would recommend?
It could be anything. It could have various architectural elements such as parapet walls and coins or columns or percentages of certain types of masonries, full windows. It could be a wide variety of things that you could have in there. The best thing to do would be, if the council is interested in seeing that, is have the applicant propose that as part of the CSD. We bring it back and see if that's something you're comfortable with.
Okay.
Well, I would think it'd be nice to see what they're going to propose. You know, I'm sure they want to do something that's going to look nice. That
Sure,
makes
and they
sense.
will.
Otherwise, nobody's going to go be there. But
Yeah.
But it'd be nice to see what they're doing, what it's going to look like, and so that'd be nice if there was a way to have that come back to us.
Oh, we could bring it back to you.
Yeah, with that, you know, and I got the
issues there.
same concern. We don't want things that are, you know, that are not. I don't know how to even just say it. They're not going to put anything there that looks bad. I don't think that's even an issue, but just to make sure it's proper, I guess.
Yeah.
The hard part is with the conceptual design is it doesn't always look like that. I'm not saying this applicant will do that, but we've had other applicants who we see something, a picture in front of us, it'll look like this, and it doesn't always turn out to that standard. So that's always a concern I have.
And since they have the control of that, can they change, if they bring us a conceptual plan, can they just change it anyway?
If it's a conceptual plan, yes.
Yeah. So then,
But we don't want to get in a situation where the CSD locks them into specific types of development. So we just want to have a guideline, a set of standards that they can utilize for their development. Like I said, they're the ones that are writing this. They're the ones that are proposing this. And so it would be up to them to propose that and bring it back to you.
Is it going to be built in phases? I'm assuming it would, since it's 200 acres.
I would imagine they probably will
Okay.
phase it. The applicant
And then
can address that.
Yeah, ideas would change, right, as different developments come.
Yeah.
Okay.
and I like the idea of having some different ideas, something that's going to look different than we just normally do, too. I mean, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just another point I wanted to make, this property is not in the North Tooele Special Service District.
Okay.
So
It talks about the lighting standard. It
they
says that
want to
it'll-
match the standards, but
it'll
it's
adhere
not
to
in the
that, okay.
district.
Okay.
I've got a question, one more. On 12.3, it says city entry monuments signage. That's a sign stating they've come into Tooele City. That's not the monument stating you're going to Compass Point. The question I have is, it says it's going to be 20 feet wide by 1 foot tall. That's 1 foot tall. So
It says 1 foot?
yeah, it says 20 foot by 1 foot tall, and I'm going, is anybody going to even see that as they're driving?
That's supposed to be 15 feet tall.
Oh, okay.
There, okay.
I feel a lot better about that. I was thinking
That's
the
a
weeds are
typo.
going to cover that.
Hopefully there's no weeds there, right, John?
Yeah, I know that Mayor Manzione is working on a monument sign for the north side, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, but it's going to resemble the sign on our south side?
It's not.
It's not.
It's going to be more modern, and with the correct, yeah. It'll just say like, welcome to Tooele, and be a different design. We'll probably modernize the one on the south end too.
But we did put those sign parameters in there so that we can put that sign up and make it meet the code. So,
Did you say the park strip trees that it's talking about, that's taken directly from our code, or did they change? Like
Most
how
of-
many trees they have to have? And
Most of the landscaping language the applicant explained was pulled from our code, and he can explain why he did that better than I probably can. But, yeah, there's a reason why.
Okay. Any other questions for Andrew?
I do, just
Yeah, go
have a little bit, just clarity. I know that the CSD is a governing document. Who governs it? Is it only the Perry,
No, we would.
the Tooele City?
Yep, it
Tooele City
becomes a
would, so-
zoning district that we will include in Title VII. So there will be a specific zoning number attached to it, and it will be a zoning code for the city. So city staff will administer that.
Okay. Great.
Excellent questions, thank you.
Okay, if the applicant has anything to say, we'll let him come up.
Good evening. Sorry for any confusion with the 1 foot tall sign. So I wrote a few notes just answering some of the questions that you guys had already asked and kind of directed towards the applicant. So I'm just going to kind of go through those, and then if there's any other questions I can answer, I'd be happy to help. So maybe starting with the intent, kind of like Andrew was mentioning with the landscaping standard and architectural standard and all that is, this project here is probably going to be developed over 10 years. And so from a owner perspective as well as a future tenant perspective, there is a certain amount of entitlement risk that could be, I guess there, with 10 years worth of, timing, and city code can change, design standards can change. And so that was kind of the intent with copying and pasting some of the existing code, was just to solidify it, make sure that, if we're talking to, 3 large big box users right now, and some of them, it would be likely that they would purchase a site and might not develop it for 5 years, right? And although our ideal scenario would be develop it now, they could have that flexibility. And so really the intent of this is to just make this as appealing as possible to some of those larger groups, as well as some of the smaller groups, just to eliminate some entitlement risk. Our goal with this area is to make this the prime commercial area in all of Tooele. And so with the design requirements and guidelines, we are long-term holders. So with the exception of if we sell a pad to a large user, all the remaining pads in development, we build and hold. And this is kind of that main gateway into all the homes that we are selling as well. And so our intent is to make this nice and appealing to future home buyers, but also to future tenants, while at the same time reducing entitlement risk to attract the tenants. And we're happy to make a few, we're happy to propose changes if it's, a hot button. One of the questions, I guess, and something that we could implement is, we developed the Peak Shopping Center with Kroger, and our intent would be at least, that standard of development. There will be nicer landscaping requirements. Trying to think. So an example of that is within the latest iteration, and I don't know if that was on what you guys received, but all along SR 36, the park strips there, we are planning on increasing the amount of trees required and just general landscaping, as well as general landscaping around the main entry monument sign on 3100 North, which will be right along the kind of that north intersection of Main Street and 3100 North. Let's see, what else? Building height, the 8 stories. I knew that was going to be a the cause for concern. So we're happy to restrict that height to specific uses if that would make it more palatable. The intent here is to be able to attract an educational facility or a medical facility and not limit them or discourage them from coming here compared to, Erda or Stansbury. So that's the idea for the 8-story area, and we're happy to. I don't know if that addresses that concern, but that's something that we could.
Do you anticipate that's one building, though, or multiple 8-story buildings? I don't know how big the area actually is where that...
I would say maybe 2. There's not demand in this market for more than, one of each of those kinds of facilities. But also the setbacks would really largely dictate if that was possible. I would imagine maybe 2 max.
Okay.
What do you mean by an educational facility? What is an example of that?
Like a university.
Oh, okay, something like that.
Yeah.
They go 8 stories tall.
I would think you'd have shared space, too, right? Like a couple floors or one business.
And yeah, they might do that, and that might be a flaw within the proposing of that, the uses tied to the 8 stories, but there is a scenario where this is not, I guess this isn't who we're necessarily talking to, but if a university that also has a finance department or an insurance company, like they might dictate the stacking of the building, and so it's possible. Let's see, there was one other thing. Actually, there's not. So, any questions that I can help answer?
I like the idea that the landscape design will be improved better because it is welcoming everyone into Tooele City. And so I go to other cities, and it seems like some of their commercial developments have significantly better landscape design than we've required in some of our businesses. So the way it's written now, though, I don't know if that, it talks about trees every so often and then water-wise shrubs, but it doesn't necessarily require so many. The trees it does, so many per feet, but shrubs and things like that, I think it's really just you saying what it looks like. So my question, I guess, is do we need to have some kind of verbiage in there that says that it has to meet this requirement? I don't know how you would do that, though.
Yeah, I think that there's a way we can look at other city code and kind of see the landscaping requirements and mirror that language.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also think if we do that, we probably should specify the types of trees that would be used. And I'm almost certain that the types, I don't think we demand what types of trees in our current ordinance. I didn't look it up, but I know there's some that we would prefer not to be there due to the fact of the way they grow and the way they shed, and you're out by an interstate.
We actually do have a tree selection list that specifies the types of trees based upon the size of the park strip.
Okay.
And so they would have to comply with that tree selection list.
Good. I thought we did.
I've got one question. On the setback from Highway 36, how big is their easement before your property starts from the asphalt, approximately?
I think it's a 10-foot is the required easement. Paul could probably answer that more than me on SR 36.
You mean from the edge of asphalt to where the UDOT property line is?
Well, to where their property begins, how far is it? I mean, is that 20 feet or is it 10 feet?
It's probably, 25 feet, 30 feet maybe, from the asphalt to where the fence.
So that's really where the trees will begin, and then we'll just have that regular shoulder of the road. Okay.
It talks a little bit about, let me see if I can find it, maybe common space. Oh, landscaping for individual lots. The percentage requirement may be reduced where project public amenities are provided. So is there a plan to have some amenities or sitting areas? Is that I think of like a Farmington station. There's stores, but then there's still like public areas that you can go and just hang out and walk around. And
Yeah, I would say I don't know if there's necessarily specific plans right now to include that, but we did want to allow provisions to be able to include.
then
those
that would
kinds of amenities.
substitute the 10%
Just
landscape area
based on
somewhere else.
actual, square footage of that amenity footprint, just would be in lieu of the landscaping.
Okay. Any other questions?
I did have a question about fencing. No fencing standard except for vehicle storage. So I'm just wondering, there's just going to be open area or just no particular fencing standard? There will be fences, but it's
Yeah,
just clarify that.
so the other sentence in that section does allow or require provisions if the commercial use is next to residential use.
Okay.
So we would include, there's a standard of 6-foot tall masonry, vinyl or concrete fence requirement if those uses abut. But beyond that, the vehicle storage, we're not currently proposing any fencing standard.
And would it be the commercial responsibility to provide the fence or the buffer between the residential? Whose responsibility is
Yeah,
that?
that would.
The commercial property?
I think technically the way it works is just whoever comes first in the development,
Okay.
but all that blue is owned by us as well, and so you'd be looking at if there is anything on the north side, which I believe we're currently planning on. We already have screening requirements on that north side,
Okay.
for at least for the multifamily that we're working on. So I think that would just be consistent across the top property line.
Is some of that blue area where the apartments are being built, or is that farther north? It's not? Okay.
In fact, I don't know if that outline is completely correct on that aerial that you had. This is more accurate. So the MR20 is where the multifamily is.
Okay.
Just right at that very first roundabout is kind of the delineating.
So a part of your CSD would be adjacent to the MR20, right?
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
My last one, the big building, and I know one of the reasons to go up as opposed to out is conserve more land to be developed. But is that going to be a decent amount of distance away from regular homes when you get to building homes on the other side, to where they're not basically looking in someone's backyard directly?
Yeah, so to answer, I'll go two approaches to answer that question. So the blue area immediately to the left of that dog leg, kind of right where we're proposing that 8 stories, is a townhome for rent project that we will be building and owning.
Okay.
And so our intent is to not limit the demand of renters, by having a large building next to. Right. And so I think our intent was to put that setback to make kind of
some space.
safeguard that interest. But in reality, it might be it could be bigger than that. The setback could be larger than that.
Okay. And again, I just wanted to ask that question because when you look at other cities, especially like Salt Lake, you got the 8, 10, 12-story buildings right next to apartments. So I was mainly referring to single-family homes, more so than the apartments and townhouses.
Yeah, so we'll have some single-family homes in that blue right next to the MR20. Mm-hmm. And so there will be some proximity of homes close
Okay.
close to the proposed 80-story, or not 80-story. 80 foot. 80 foot
New York stuff.
We're in New York now.
Pushback if we go 80.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Okay. All right, good discussion. Any other questions, comments? Okay, hopefully that gives you our questions and ideas for it, so.
Okay, we have our marching orders.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to our next discussion item, a discussion on Resolution 2026-17, a resolution of the Tooele City Council approving an agreement, change order number 3 with Hydro Resources Rocky Mountain, Inc. for drilling of the 2025 Tooele City Wells Project, presented by Nathan Farr, the Public Works Director.
Good evening, Council. Glad you all have your questions out of your system. So we have been working with Hydro Resources in our Rogers Road well. They asked us to process a change order to secure the wellhead, and so they ordered a casing that will protect the first 300 feet of the well, so that in the event that it can't support itself, it would not fall in, and then it cause us to have to cap that and drill again somewhere else at significant cost. And so that change order covers that. It also has the change orders 1 and 2 have eaten up our contingency, and so we're requesting to rebuild our contingency in the event that we face additional costs that were unforeseen. There is a caveat to that, though. In our latest change order, they recommended removing 2 line items that we feel like, well, I forgot to account for, but I feel like we may want to include them in our contingency fund, and so it would increase the amount of that contingency fund to $223,500. But it's a line item. I don't know if you have the hydro invoice in front of you. It's down at C15 and 16. It's mob and demob of dual swab, and well development with dual swab moved to optional. So those 2 items are intended to allow us to do a better job of pulling out any of the mud, quote unquote mud, that they use to keep the wellhead open as they're drilling. And so if we need to use that money, we would definitely want it to be in there without having to come back and ask you for more money later. But it is up to you whether or not you want to include that in this request for funds, and build up the contingency now, or we can wait and see if we do need it and come back and do another resolution for an additional contingency later. So that's kind of what we're up against right now. We do need to have the $252,475.09 for the cost of change order 3, but we are asking for the additional funds to rebuild our contingency fund at this time. So, any questions?
I do have a question. You're going to increase the depth of the well from 1,210 feet to 1,320 feet, so that's a significant change.
Yeah, so we did, with the addition of that casing, we wanted to make sure we could go even further down and access, if possible, water that would help us recoup some of that cost. And so if it's there, we'll use it. If not, we'll just have to cap it where we get the water and use it from there. But we're hoping we get water all the way down.
Great. Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
Just comment, the other day, maybe somebody told me you hit rock and it was harder to drill through in that section.
We did hit some pretty hard, I think we hit some pretty hard rock and some calcite that was causing some problems for the wellhead. It kind of grounded off. So, but they have since then pushed through. We're at currently, as of tonight, or at today's latest well report, we went from 561 to 600 today. So we're down to 600 feet currently. So things are moving much faster than they were the past few days. So we're making some good progress.
Great.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This will be on our business meeting tonight.
Yes, correct.
Okay, thanks, Nathan. All right, item 6 are closed meetings. We do have a closed meeting tonight to discuss property acquisition. I'll entertain a motion to move to a closed meeting.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to move to a closed meeting.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Councilwoman Goches and a second from Councilman Hanson. We'll take it to a vote. Councilman McCall?
Aye.
Councilman Hanson?
Aye.
Councilwoman Goches?
Aye.
Councilman Gossett?
Aye.
I'm Councilman Brady, and I vote aye. That passes 5-0, so we will recess here at 6:25 PM and reconvene in the large conference room for a closed meeting.